Huh? Oh, okay.
I can't believe I'm on time.
That's what everybody was in awe about, not your scooter. Okay, we'll go ahead and begin our March 21st commission meeting. I will give the invocation, and then Marla Young will lead us in the pledge. Our Father in heaven, as we bow our heads before thee this day, we give thee thanks for the many blessings that we have. We're grateful to live in this great country and for the freedoms in which we enjoy, and for this county that we live in and the great people in it. Father, please bless those who serve us in this county and in this great land. Please guard and protect them. Please bless those who are away and overseas. Please guard and protect them and bless their families. Father, please bless us this day as we go through the items, that we might be able to have thy Spirit to be able to know the things that would be best for this county and going forward. Again, we are grateful for the good people that live here and for the many relationships and friends that we do enjoy. And we say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Just as a side note, as we start here, I want to excuse Commissioner Summers. He is back serving on a national committee, right, for NATO, and so he is back in Washington, so he will not be with us today. I guess, did you get a chance to look over the minutes?
I did. I would make a motion that we approve our minutes from March 7th, 2018.
I have a motion by Commissioner Scott. I'll second that, and a second by me. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Administrative review, any agenda items? Future agenda items you have?
No, just thanks to anybody that participated in our precinct caucuses last night, and it's going on, and so we appreciate everybody's service and being willing to be involved. So,
Okay. I had the privilege of being involved in it's a Zone 1 for the Soil Conservation District. Last Friday, they have their annual meeting where they kind of collaborate with the different boards in the region, and they were at the USU Extension. And it was good to visit with them, and a lot of those guys do good work in working with the farmers around here with the soils and trying to make sure that they're able to get the most they can out of their crops and making sure we have good soil health for the food that we grow. And so it's we got a great group of people involved in that. So I was fortunate enough to be a part of that. Do you have anything, Steve?
Just a couple of executive session items is all.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and have Corey. You want to come up with Brian, and we'll talk about the fire suppression since that was a former agenda item.
Where do you want to start?
Well, I think we need to just discuss a little bit of what Corey was able to find out in the meeting that we had with you guys, as far as where we're at with that.
He gave us a couple of options as far as possibilities there. Had a good meeting with, just to preface it, we had a good meeting with Ted Black. He is the Chief Deputy Fire Marshal for the state of Utah. Basically, he said that he wanted to come up and talk to us. He had been wanting to come up and talk with us because a lot of stuff had been going on with respect to our ordinance down at the legislative session. He said it was mainly confusion People were claiming that our ordinance was being used as a urban wildland ordinance, which is just a part of the ordinance. He said that's where the confusion comes up. It's not just an urban wildland interface, it's a fire sprinkler ordinance. Urban wildland is part of that, but it's not the whole ordinance. And so we had some discussion about whether we're the only ones that have such an ordinance. He said, no, you're not the only ones that have such an ordinance. He indicated that there are probably 8 or 9 other jurisdictions that have, I don't know the exact number, but there's a handful of other jurisdictions that have similar ordinances. And he said that you're fully within your authority to do that. There's nothing that would prohibit you from doing that. Just looking at my notes here real quick. We talked about, some mention had come up about giving a variance to somebody who, what Ted suggested would, if somebody was going to be annexed into a city within 2 or 3 years that would have fire hydrants, that he didn't have any problem with a variance being granted to them. They would have to have proof that they're going to be annexed into the city. Whether you can do that legally or not is another issue, because you really can't grant a variance to an ordinance. You probably could grant some kind of an exception, saying we're not going to apply this ordinance because you're going to be annexed. You'd have to have some proof from the city that they were in fact going to annex.
To make sure it happens.
Yeah, to make
Yeah.
sure that it does happen. So he discussed that about the variance. We talked about the possibility of what if we decide we don't want a fire sprinkler ordinance? He said really the only alternative would be is because the county is responsible for fire suppression and protection of its residents. You can't waive that. You can't have people say it's okay. It's like saying we're going to get people to agree they don't want the sheriff, law enforcement. You just can't do that. Fire protection's the same thing. So the alternative that he gave was that if the county wanted to invest money into some fire trucks, fire tenders, that would be the equivalent, be able to provide the protection equivalent to the sprinkler system, then that would be an option. But you'd have to invest in water tenders and have them strategically placed throughout the county so that they could be wherever they needed to be within the county to address the fire. The other alternative is to have the sprinkler ordinance, which we do have. And so those were the only 2 possibilities that he suggested.
I can't imagine that that would be very cost effective to have tenders all over.
Well, it would be,
Dutch County does it.
Cache County does that, and looking at our infrastructure, we're looking just to cover along the Wasatch Front here, we'll probably need about 7 of them. Looking at the price of used tenders, I mean, they're not tenders, if we did commercial fire tenders, they're about $225,000 a piece. If we do used water trucks from Whitaker, which is some of what Cache County has done, we're around $60,000 a piece, another $15,000 each in modifications, and then housing them. That's going to be our next issue.
Yeah.
Willard, Honeyville, Thatcher Penrose, Deweyville, we don't have a place to house them in their stations at this point in time. And then, I'm not saying we couldn't do it. We do about, and Mr. Nelson even suggested a $300 to $500 fee to help offset the cost of that. We do about 10 of these fire suppression systems a year, and I think when we looked at building modifications, and well, even just the tenders, we're over $500,000 to do that. So that's, and trying to come up with that's going to be.
Would you have to start off with say 7? Or could you do it per area as you kind of grow?
If I could put one in Willard, Brigham City, Corinne has one at this point in time, but I could do them in areas as we grow. But then this is going to be a rolling ordinance to move across there. So I mean, it's going to be several $100,000 to start up the project, and then again, housing them is another thing. The other thing that's going to come across this, as we do this, and it comes back to, are we sharing that burden equally across for people that already have hydrants and systems in there? So now we wind up the way the county contracts with the other fire departments. If I call out 4 water tenders to meet that, that's another $1,000 additionally for each time we do call out for a tender task force. So, I mean, can it be done? Yes, if we have the money to put it towards a project. That's up to you guys. But again, We're doing about 10 of these systems a year is what we're doing, so, and those are the ones that are putting them in. Other people are putting in fire hydrants. Some of the system is there, so it's back on the developer.
Okay. And it sounds like you've talked, like with Cache Valley, then you're aware of
Yeah, that's what they
what they've done.
Yeah.
And I think
Okay.
Ted would acknowledge that too. I think I think he indicated to us that's what Cache Valley's doing.
Oh, yeah, and I've spent many days talking over this with Rod Hammer. In fact, I'm teaching a class on the use of the water tenders, but I don't have the capital to go out and put that infrastructure in place out of my budget.
I guess my take on this is I go back to that one size fits all. My situation is different than the majority of the county, in that Brigham City is the fire department that's going to respond to my area, not the county. I'm not.
They are, but the county's required to provide that service. You'll actually have Corinne responding there too. But even like I sent you on the email, Brigham City wouldn't allow this situation in their city where they respond to. And I think I gave you the copy of that. Even in Brigham City, you cannot be more than 300 feet from a fire hydrant. That's in their ordinance. So we have given an exception to the fire flow, which the state says we can do, for the inclusion of a fire suppression system. In fact, when we talked to Ted Black, he said that's the only reduction in fire flow I can do, or in lieu of fire protection, is allow a fire suppression system to take that place. And
Okay.
that was what he gave us. Or, again, if we do the hydrants.
And
or
I was
the tank-
trying to remember, Brian, did you mention before anything about that Brigham, the possibility of annexing, or have you visited with them
Well,
much
that's
about
the-
that?
That's the situation. So right now, all that area west of 2800 West and north of Forest Street
Mm-hmm.
is that section there is county. Nobody can build in that area because they can't get a water permit unless they annex into Brigham City. So it's a matter of when somebody wants to build out there, if Brigham City's can annex them, because the county can't give them water because it's not county water. They can't build there unless they did what I did, and that was purchase a water tap in 2011 when we were on the list. So you can't build there, which, is there a time frame? Possibly, I don't know, but as soon as somebody applies and wants to build a house there, they're gonna have to annex into Brigham City because they won't let them build there without water.
So the water tap that you purchased, that is Brigham City?
Mhm.
And so have you spoken at all with anybody on Brigham Corp staff about officially being annexed in?
For me to be annexed?
Uh-huh.
Hmm?
What do you think, Steve? I mean, the one problem I see there is kind of what Corey mentioned, is if you were annexed in, then you would fall under Brigham City Code and their zoning. And what would be the closest fire hydrant to your property where you're building?
Still on 4th Street,
Okay.
1,800 feet.
And they require 300 feet?
which I don't know, I haven't asked specifics on that. 300 feet seems awful short based off of the information that I've read. Lowest I've read is 600.
Yeah, and they're doing a 600-foot spacing, and this is the copy of their ordinance, Title 28. No building permit shall be issued for construction of a new dwelling structure unless said structure or some portion therefore of lie within the distance of 300 linear feet as measured from the structure to the right-of-way, along the right-of-way to the nearest fire hydrant. Says it doesn't apply to lots that were plotted before 1986. That's what the state code says. We can't, anything that's plotted after 1986, then this applies to, anything that applies before. So if the subdivision was plotted out and there was 10 lots divided, and it was before 86, then the current codes would not apply to that. This is Brigham City's code, as far as that goes, so. That they're doing 100-foot or 600-foot hydrant spacing is what this is telling us, so.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
No, I mean, I agree with Brian. Your home is going to be, I'd have to drive the distance similar to what you did, but I don't think your home is going to be much further away than mine is, down behind the hospital. And so, I mean, I totally sympathize with it, and I'm really trying to figure out a way that we can make this work for all parties and not violate any of the ordinances or any of the code that we are obligated to to enforce and to abide by.
One of the things that has been brought up, we were brainstorming it ourselves. I talked to Commissioner Summers a little bit about it. It is made difficult by, the further you get away from a corporate limit, it's more understandable. But he's right next to the corporate limits, which makes it a difficult situation.
Right.
So the question is, well, can we treat people closer differently than people further out? And the answer to that is unfortunately, no, because when you pass a law, it has to apply equally to everybody in the county.
Unless you do it by zone.
Well, if you think about the fencing ordinance, that same issue came with the fencing ordinance.
Right.
The only way we were able to divide the county into 2 zones was to have the legislature amend the fencing statute to say that you can have different divisions within the same, otherwise we couldn't have done what we did there. Because it's an equal protection thing, if you pass a law, it's gotta apply equally to everybody within the county, not just some that live far out or some that are closer in. So that's the problem with creating 2 separate,
Correct me if
Ordinances.
I'm wrong, but according to Ted Black, according to state law, I could get a variance from state law, I just couldn't get a variance from the county ordinance.
no, what Ted Black was talking about is a variance from our ordinance. And then, and basically, he indicated to me that he'd spoken with you about a variance, and then he kind of backpedaled and says, I guess that's probably not legal. I think he said that in the email he sent
And
out
that's
the other
because of
day.
the ordinance, but that.
Right.
When he's talking about a variance, he's talking about a variance from the fire code, not the state statute.
And you can do a variance in the code as long as it meets the intent of the code. And we talked about the Procter and
Right.
Gamble system, where recommended height for horn strobes is 8 feet, and because of their high pile storage, they couldn't be seen at 8 feet, so we gave a variance to allow them to put them at 20 feet. So that's the kind
So
of.
you get a
example
variance
can
from the
do to
fire code, but as far as I guess what you're saying is correct. You can't get a variance from the ordinance, but you could get a variance from the fire code, which is incorporated into state statute. That's like any variance from state statute.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, I could get a variance from one, but I can't get a variance from an ordinance, because an ordinance is.
Right.
And I guess that's my,
But in
that's
order to
my
get,
argument is.
in order to get that
one size
variance,
fits all, no matter what. And-
in order to get that variance, you'd have to have, according to Ted, you'd have to have proof that Brigham City was gonna annex within 2 to 3 years. And that way they would extend their water system to include the.
See, and I would like to take a little more time, not that I want to keep kicking this down the road for you, but I'd like to find out from Brigham a little bit more and see if that's a possibility and where they're at.
Yeah, and he said if they were willing to sign stating that they were going to annex with that within 24 to 36 months,
That's
and
what Ted
would
said.
pay all the cost to provide that protection down there, they would upsize the line at their cost, then he said that there wouldn't be an issue. But if that doesn't happen, then it comes back to us.
Is there any opportunity for an exception or a variance through Brigham City if it were annexed? Or, I mean, that seems like the path of least resistance, because if we have to go to dual zones and that requires something through the legislature, we're into July of next year by the time that it goes through, it gets enacted, and it becomes law, and then we could do something about it.
I don't
Which
know
is-
if it would be
Depends on what-
cost effective for you to bring Brigham City or not. What would there be, what's their impact fees? How do they compare to what the county has?
And
Just
in fairness to Brian, it's really a 2-part question. First of all, they're gonna annex, but second of all, are they still gonna require him to be the one to bear the cost of extending that line? I don't know the answer to that. They may say, sure, we'll annex, but you're gonna have to bring the line,
Yeah.
Because that was one of the issues with the fire hydrants out in the Thatcher Bothwell area.
right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it seems like it's an option worth looking at as far as to see, so we know as we're looking at this. So,
Yeah, it's,
Because what's your time frame? I mean, the weather's getting good. I know that you're pretty anxious to stick a shovel in the dirt.
Next
Yeah.
breaking ground.
Any other options? I mean, I'm trying to think of a way to make this work because, I mean,
Oh, my.
everything that you're saying makes complete and total sense, and I'm trying to figure out a workaround on this.
figuring out how, yeah, because we're kind of bound, but to me, I mean, like I say, it doesn't help with your timing, but to look at the annex option is, and find out what Brigham's intent is there, so we could maybe look at that.
And I don't know, in my, I don't even know if they would know that, to be honest with you, because it would depend on who wants to build there. I've got a guy that works for me who has, his family has separated the property right on the corner of 2800 West and 4th Street. His in-laws live right there on the corner, and they have broken off, already broken off, lots for their family to build on. So that would kind of depend on, he just bought a brand new house, so even though he's got a lot there, he probably won't be able to build, but eventually they want to, so I don't even know if they could tell you, I don't know.
Doesn't the annex?
In fairness, I would be very surprised if Brigham was willing to say that, because then they're committed to, we're gonna annex in
Yeah.
3 years. I don't know, but they may have plans to do it, I don't know, but it'd be surprising if they would.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, where we don't know that side of it, I just think before we make a decision, we ought to at least know that.
I mean, the only other alternative I can think of, which really isn't a viable one, is to do away with the ordinance, then he's allowed to do it. But then it doesn't apply to anybody, and then you're opening the county up to,
Yeah.
and there's probably more implications. I understand part of the ordinance, the urban wildland entitles us to some funding. If we don't have it, then you don't get funding, is that right?
That's what the State Division of Wildlife, or State Lands and Forestry said, we have to have that, an ordinance similar to that in place in order to, with the fire
And
policy.
again, that's not what's causing the issue here.
Yeah.
It's not the urban
Yeah.
wildland, it's the water flow.
So there, it's kind of a catch-22. We've got to provide it, but then, again, we don't have the option of having different areas by state code, and again, we're
But if there was,
actually very more lax than
or
most
correct me
others.
if I'm wrong, when we were out in the hall talking
Yeah.
last time, you said there was 160 homes built last year.
160 homes, exactly right.
You're
Only,
telling me that there was only 10 that had to install it?
correct.
I find that surprising.
No, we've got the grant system going right now, and we track every one that we do. There's only 10 of them that wind up having to
Because
put it.
I know of 3 that are being built right now
Hmm?
on Pack Hatch Road that are being required to do it.
3 together,
3 in separate areas.
Oh,
along there.
but we are,
One that just
yeah.
got done, 2 that are being
Yep.
in,
Last,
being done right now.
last year, in fact, we've only paid out 5 of the suppression grants at this point in time for this year.
so where does that suppression grant money come from?
That suppression money grant comes from the fire policy, which is what we have to do in order to pay for wildland. It says we have to put,
Is that the county providing that money?
the county's providing that money, but the legislature says this is money that we have to pay. We have to put 50% of it in mitigation, 25% of it in prevention, and 25% of it in preparedness. Now, the county's bill last year for that, in order for the state to pay wildland fires, is $435,000. So we took, when we're the only ones in the state that have done this so far, and there's a lot of people going, how do we dare do that? Not dare do that. They're commending us for doing that. We took $50,000 and we put it into a fund of that prevention money to help offset the cost of these wildland, or these residential fire protection systems. So we're covering that under prevention. So that's where that money is coming from. It's money that the county is required to spend before the state will pay for our wildland cost, fire cost. So before we would have a suppression budget that was about $500,000, plus an insurance fund that was another $93,000. So we were paying about $600,000 before the state would come in and kick over the cost. Now they're trying to get work done up front to do that. So we were able to utilize some of that money to pay, by ordinance, help offset the cost of these suppression systems. And we haven't spent the $50,000 from last year. And we've capped it right now at $4,000 a system is really what we did, figuring if we had 11 or 12 of them in a year, which is more than we've been running, then that 50,000 would cover that monies.
So $50,000 a year, that buys you 1 truck a year.
Mhm.
So in
It does.
7 years now, I guess my question is, and my take on it is if you look at the big picture, if you buy the tender trucks, okay, the fire suppression is helping one house.
Mhm.
The tender trucks if you eventually, now obviously you can't do them all at once, but eventually that's gonna help more than just one person.
And
It's
the
gonna
tip,
help the county, that's gonna help,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna help the whole community. It's not gonna help just one person at a time.
and we are buying trucks, the vehicles go under preparedness, and that's where the county's brush trucks and that are coming out of right now.
But I know
they're-
too, part of the issue, because it's not just the expense of the trucks themselves, but
Housing
dealing
them.
with the central fire district, where do you house them? Because they do need to have a place to be stored in order to function and properly work. And so that's an added cost too, and we'd have to look into that. My feeling is, I apologize, Brian, because I know you're trying to, on a timeline. Me personally, I would feel better at least waiting till the next commission meeting, having a chance to just see if Brigham has any intent or not, so we at least know where they're going that direction. And then we can, sit down and make a final decision on,
I just
What
don't think
direction
they're
to
gonna be
go?
able to tell you based off of, it depends on who wants to build it. That's just, once a farmer decides that, hey, I don't want this land anymore, so,
Mhm.
then they're gonna build. So it's not, I don't think they're gonna be able to answer that question accurately or even give you an answer.
okay. Do you have anything?
No, I'm just taking some notes. The only other question that I have, that legislative action that allowed the county to have different zones for the fence in, fence out, I'm assuming that applied specifically to the fencing
Yeah, it
ordinance.
was right in that fence, there's a state fencing law, and that's where it was put in, and that allowed us to go back and do two separate zones.
Okay, so if you were going to do two separate zones for fire suppression or something like that, it would have to be specific to a state fire law. You
I
couldn't
would-
incorporate it
I would think so.
under
The
that
one-
same,
Probably the one that authorized, there's a specific one that authorizes the county to have this ordinance. I'd have to look into that, but that's my guess.
okay.
Corey, if Brigham and Corinne have a tender, how far, what's the distance for that to be able to qualify?
Corinne has a tender, Brigham City doesn't. The problem is we need to supply a continuous water supply. And so that's why we wind up having to, and that's what Cash does. They have multiple tenders that respond and they set up a relay. You gotta have a place to get water, we have that. But you gotta be able to shuttle that water and keep that continuous fire flow going, is what it is. So it takes more than one. One tender coming in there is gonna get you a few minutes. If inch and three-quarter line on a truck, on a fire engine flows 125 gallons a minute. So, I mean, we've got to be able to have more than one line. That's where, if we put one on each side of the house, even just to protect it, we're at a minimum of 500 gallons a minute for a continuous amount of time. So that's the way fire flow, everything is set up. NFPA, they're going for a 1 or 2 hour time. We're trying to minimize that, go to the least amount of water possible in order to not even put the fire out, but just surround it and keep it from continuing
Spreading.
going anywhere else. And that's really what we're trying to do. Yeah, so
Where I'm at, my fire's not, if my house does catch on fire,
we
It's not going
just had fire department up in Fielding that they started a fire half a mile away from trying to do a control burn on a house. They burned down the neighbor's shed, and then they started a fire half a mile away in a feedlot. So those embers travel.
correct me if I'm wrong, but
those
they didn't
embers-
have the fire hydrants weren't even turned on.
Nope, they didn't. But I'm just saying you have to have a water supply there. That did travel quite a ways, over half a mile, and embers will do that. So.
Okay. Well,
I just think being asked to accept something in the county that, because of Brigham's Fire Department, that they won't accept in their own city by their ordinance, or they can't accept by their own ordinance, and that would be the kicker there. They won't allow it for their fire department to respond that way, or to be built that way either, so but because we're in the county and they're providing service out there, that I don't think that things change.
I don't know if they, I think they do.
That would be my suggestion, Brian, is to visit with Brigham City and see if you can get anywhere there or what solutions they have. Couple of other things that we can check into, but there's got to be something we can do or a way to make this work.
I'd like to visit a little bit more with Steve too, if we can just have a couple more weeks.
I'm breaking ground, so I'll do,
Okay,
I'm not gonna hold up because of this, obviously, but just know
understand.
as soon as I get the okay to do that.
Okay. Okay, well, let's do that. You want to just table it?
Unless there's another option. I mean, I appreciate your input, and I totally sympathize, and trying to figure out a way to make this work for everybody and stay in compliance with the ordinances. We'll keep looking.
Yeah. So,
Actually, I just encourage you to find not just a one size fits all,
Right.
yeah,
more than one option.
yeah. No, I
That's the
see
reason I
where you're
keep-
coming from.
That's the reason I keep coming back to that fencing ordinance, because it truly is two different issues. And so to be able to do that, I mean, that would make a ton of sense. Okay, you are this distance away. This is a situation. You're this distance away. Here's the solution. And our hands are tied on that one, so
I just think that.
we'll see.
You just, money that's being used somewhere that's not, obviously, he said it's left over, if it's not being utilized, utilize that.
And that may work for a future plan down the road, if we can try and go there, but again,
Mhm.
there's infrastructure both directions. Ideally, the best situation is water lines in the ground and hydrants, and that's happening throughout a lot of the county because of this. Unfortunately, there are gonna be pockets that it's not happening in.
I just happen to be in one of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I'm assuming
Yeah.
that the cost to go 12 to 1,800 feet down the road is substantially higher than the cost of a fire suppression system. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I figured.
So Steve, do we need to make a motion to table this or?
Yeah, you do
So
that.
it's a past
Okay.
agenda item.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd make a motion that we table this and do a little more research.
I have a motion by Commissioner Scott. I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Gentlemen,
Thanks, Brian.
thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
betcha.
You do have a published bid opening time, I believe,
Okay.
so you might want to jump on
Okay, what times?
that. It was at 11:50.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. We need to jump up and have Bill up here then?
It was published for a certain time, wasn't it, Bill?
Is it, your thing was published for a certain time? Yeah. Okay, we'll jump up here to the asphalt bids then, Bill, and we'll come back to the other. So. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So this is our major chip oil bid opening, and looks like we have 4 companies bidding on the oils, the asphalt oils. Let's see what we got here. First bid is from ASI. Excuse me. ASI is short for Asphalt Systems Incorporated. On the 1,100 ton of LM CRS, they put no bid. On 260 tons of CSS1, no bid. 70 tons of MC 800, no bid. They did bid out the 105 tons of GSB 88, which is kind of a product of their own. They're the only ones who make it in Utah. It's a rejuvenating fog spray. The price is $574 per ton. They gave us a price on the Pass Oil, which is a product of their own, 70 tons at $1,070 per ton, and a freight cost of $39 per ton. Those were the only two products that they did bid. The next bid is from Western Emulsions. Western Emulsions, they're out of by North Salt Lake, their plants are. Either 1,100 tons of LMCRS, they gave us a price at $314 per ton. The 260 tons of CSS1, they gave us a price of $188 per ton. No bid on the MC800 or GSB88 or the Pass oil. They gave us a freight cost of $39 per ton. Our next bid is from Idaho Asphalt. Idaho Asphalt gave us a no bid on the LMCRS, no bid on the CSS1. On the MC800, they gave us a price of $621 per ton and a freight cost of $32.65. Let's see. Those two.
They didn't have any other bids, Bill?
No, I
Just
don't
that one?
think so. I
Okay.
thought we had one more, but maybe not. I thought,
So nothing from Calumet.
yeah, I thought Jesse had another bid, but maybe not. I will check
Real
with
quick.
her from Mountain States, but maybe not. I thought she said she had one from Mountain States.
Do we have any more bids down there, like from Mountain States? You had 4?
That's just 3 so
Yeah.
far, isn't it?
Yeah,
I've only got the 3.
And there's not another envelope down there? Let's see, it only has 3.
so she had 3 then.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay.
She said one person brought in 2 envelopes.
All we have is 3 right now. Oh. There is one down there.
Okay. All right.
Sorry about
Good.
that. Mountain States Asphalt.
So, let's see, they're not on the list. That's just a.
That was in the, they were Calumet.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the same one.
Yeah. So yeah, they are on the bid sheet, they are listing themselves as Calumet Specialty Products.
Okay.
They gave us a bid on the LM CRS of $364 per ton. The CSS1, they gave us a price of $210 per ton. The MC800, they gave us a price of $549 per ton. No bid on the GSB 88 or the Pass oil. And they gave us a freight price of $39 per ton. And that concludes our bids at this time. I would like time to go back and go through their paperwork and make sure everything is correct and their specifications are on, and then come back and be able to award our quantities and our products to the companies.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Do you have any questions?
No, I mean, just glancing over these, you can kind of see where it's going to land just because
Yeah.
there's only a few that do certain items, but okay.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Thanks.
Bring them on back.
Great.
Thanks, Bill.
Did you want to do the asphalt overlays, East Promontory Road? At this time? or
Might
you
as well,
wanna wait?
while you're up here, we'll just do that.
Okay. At this time, we did have a contract that we awarded to Geneva Rock to do the asphalt overlays for the county last summer. Part of that contract was to do the East Promontory Road overlaying, I believe it was 17 or 18 miles of overlays, shouldering, signage, like curve signage and so forth, that we had the engineering firm CRS do that study and also put the bid packet together. That portion of the contract, we did not give them a notice to proceed last summer because we did not get the money into our account to have the project paid for. At this time, Geneva Rock is, they would like to be able to finish up and do the project and the contract at the amount bid on the project. So at this time, I spoke a little bit with Steve and Tom on this, if we would be okay at this point to give them a notice to proceed at the same bid amount and finish out their contract at this time, this summer, since we do have the $2.9 million in our account. And in my view, as far as what I'm seeing on freight costs, a lot of the companies that are freighting oil this summer, they're going to be required to have electronic logbooks. So they are upping their price for a lot of different reasons on freighting. So I don't think we're going to get it any cheaper. And I think at this time, we'd be asking to give a notice to proceed on the project to Geneva Rock.
And all the money's in there now, right?
You'd have to ask
That-
Tom. I don't know where Tom.
Oh, it's gone.
My understanding is that it is, but
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe he said that the deposit hit.
Okay.
It was just late last fall. It was after the weather changed.
That was the issue we're
so-
having.
Yep.
Yeah, approved.
They have put in, it was like, it's $2,923,502.30.
Make sure
that
we got
would
that
be in
30
the notice to
cents.
proceed on
Yeah.
that amount.
I was just out there on Monday, and the road is in really pretty good condition.
Yes.
I mean, there's no snow, there's no issues, and you need to have it done before there was significant truck traffic. But yeah, I would make a motion that we authorize Geneva to move forward and start working on the overlay.
I'll second that. I have a motion by Commissioner Scott, second by me. All in favor?
Aye.
One other bit of information on the East Promontory Road. The sheriff's office is just finishing up on putting their speed counter box in a few locations out on the roadway. We do have 2 sites located, so we did, the first stretch of the East Promontory Road is really wide open, straightaway type of situation. We've got some traffic speed counts on that section, and then we did down in the S curves, and I think they're going to be down in the graveled section this last week and pull that data up. So I'm hoping by the time I'll be able to come back in another 2 weeks if we can complete it, take this data set, meet with Promontory and also our engineering firm, and be able to give a recommendation to the commission to set a speed limit on the roadway. So hopefully we'll have that for you. If not 2 weeks, probably the next one after that, but we're shooting for 2 weeks from now.
I'm hearing suggestions as low as 35 in the S curves. I know that you can go faster than that in a car or maybe even a pickup truck, but if you are in a commercial garbage truck with a load, I think you're inviting disaster if it's much higher than that.
Exactly.
So that was a suggestion I heard from out there.
I think we're
So-
going to try to get a lot of good input into the data and the information we're going to give you guys to make a recommendation to set the speed limit on that section.
Cool.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, we'll come back up here on top and go to, thanks. So, does that need to go to you?
Is that the notice to proceed?
Yeah,
Did you sign
So-
it already?
no. Do I sign it or Sam? Sam's the chair.
Well, now it's all messed up.
We'll
I don't-
look at it and see
Okay,
what
it just
you
says
need.
authorized signature, so. You want Stan to sign it, or you want me to?
You can, since you're the one
Okay.
here.
All right, I'll sign them both then. I got 2 copies here. So. I'll let Marla fill that in. Okay, Julie, sorry, keep you waiting. So come on up.
Okay. How are you guys?
Good.
Good.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you guys some numbers of, I have to report for my grants. And so from October 1st through today, we have served 2,514 victims and services that we have provided for victims. Since October of last year, we have served 484 victims. So the services that we provided includes the referrals, criminal court, notification of court, et cetera. Since January of this last year, January 2018 to today's date, we have 106 new victims that we are serving currently. 23 of those victims are in the rural areas of Box Elder County. So we consider them out past any city lines or anything like that. 70 of those cases are juvenile court cases, so in our juvenile court system. Our office has currently 1,412 criminal cases that we are working through since January of 2018. That includes drug court, mental health court, juvenile court, any kind of sentencings, any kind of stuff that we're doing through the criminal court cases. We currently, so on those, do you have any questions on that?
That's a
Just a
lot of
lot.
cases.
Yeah,
We are trying to track different things through our JustWare, that we have this system that works really well, and we're also tracking our criminal court cases for all our prosecutors and stuff like that, so it's more of a better number for our office and for our grants and stuff. I don't have to do a VOCA grant this year because it was a 2-year grant from the last time. VAWA grant we just got awarded, and we'll have Jeremy for another year, thank goodness, for our for our investigator. But we did lose Miss Weller. She was our volunteer victim advocate. She left she went somewhere else to work, so we are currently hiring for somebody on that case, and so we are doing some interviews this next week for that position
okay.
for our volunteers. So also, Crime Victims Week will start April 7th through the 14th. That's a national crime victims. Our thing is going to be what we're doing and what I'm promoting and what I'm helping with is the Grizzlies Night. That is April 7th. It's a kickoff event for the crime victims for our area in the state of Utah. I brought you some flyers. If the tickets are like $10, so it's really the governor will be there. There'll be a bunch of people there that will promote it, do kickoff, put the pugs down and stuff like that. So it'll be really fun, and I enjoy doing that every year. The other thing that we have going on is I will be sending out emails. We have the Utah School Safety Commission. They're doing town meetings. The one that we're going to be doing here in Box Elder County is April 3rd at 7 o'clock at the Box Elder County, at Box Elder High School. They would like the commissioners, law enforcement, community, media, everybody be there. They've already talked to Steve about that, to be there. This is a big concern in the schools and the safety. This is for District 1. Terrell Warner is the representative for our school district here in District 1, and she is going around, and there's a committee of 8 people. I don't know all that's involved in that, so it'll be the first meeting that we're going to. Me and Steve are going to be there, and so we'd like to invite you, and I'll send an email with all that information out to the county and to law enforcement.
That's good. I've had a brief visit with the sheriff on this. It's an issue that we all need to get together on and discuss, because just as the environment that we're in today.
Yeah, we just
Oh.
had another one in Maryland, and a lot of these school shootings are unfortunately happening in small communities, and we are a small community, and that does worry us. Hopefully, it would never happen here. We all knock on wood, but you just never know what tomorrow will bring. So we are trying to work with that. I think it's a good idea. I know Representative Mike Kelly, I think, is one of the representatives on this commission. They do have 2 high school students that are working on this same commission. So me and Steve will be involved in that, and then we'll work through that. But we do want law enforcement, the commissioners and stuff to get involved so we can have a plan all together with us, Cache County and Rich. So for right now, that's what I have. I did bring you some flyers, so you have them for the Grizzly game if you'd like to come. It's
Okay.
fun. So do you have any questions?
No, we just
No, thank you.
appreciate the work that you do. No offense, but we wish we could put you out of business.
So do I. every day.
But we really do appreciate all that you do.
I tell Steve I quit every day almost. So we do work hard. We have a great team in our office, and we just work as hard as we can, unfortunately. And with Box Elder, as you can see, is expanding. It's going to be, every day we're going to have more and more crime, unfortunately. And so we wish we all could be out of business.
Well, thanks for the info, Julie. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Sheriff.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Hello.
I'm here to talk to you about another full-time nursing position at the jail. Our nurse has prepared some information, I hope he saw it, about his work duties and his load, and we have room for 2 full-time nurses, or we have work for 2 full-time nurses. We've tried to handle it in the past with 1 full-time and 2 part-time, but our 2 part-time system, we haven't been able to fill 1 spot regularly. The other one can only work 7 hours a week. So instead of getting 40 hours out of our part-timers, we're getting 7. And as a consequence, our full-time nurse is run ragged. This conversation started, Jenica called me the first 2 months of 2018. He was 70% through his overtime budget. That's what started this discussion about how do we fix it. One of our suggestions was approaching the commissioners at next budget year, which is when this is normally supposed to happen, to talk about going to that system. But we both felt we're worried that, to be fair to the employee, that we're burning him out, and we need to try to have this discussion sooner. A lot of jobs if a deputy comes to work on a day off, often they can be given another day off work or something like that. This nurse is the only one doing this job. This job has to get done, and we can't flex his hours like we do other positions. So even though it's unusual to come to you in the middle of the year, we'd like your consideration for letting us post another full-time position. And
Well, and we'd need to maybe talk with Tom and Jenica, but I can't imagine that we would even need to open the budget or amend it because you've been understaffed on patrol and corrections, and so that could just be a line movement, couldn't it, Tom? Okay. I have no problem. I think you'll actually see some savings because of the overtime, and you won't have, more importantly, you won't have an employee that's stressed out and be replacing another nurse because they.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, I would make a motion that we do a posting and fill that second full-time nurse position for corrections.
I'll second that. I have a motion by Commissioner Scott, second by me. All in favor?
Aye.
thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, thanks, Sheriff.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Okay.
I don't see
Yeah,
Doug.
see Doug.
I do
Okay.
know a little bit about this one. I talked with Rebecca, and she was at some meetings outside today and wasn't able to come. Has she talked to you about this one, Steve? We don't see this very often, and I know that we have a provision in there where we can go ahead and help with an indigent burial, and there is an intake and some information that's gathered. This individual was a resident of here in the county, but passed away in Ogden. And Rebecca did talk with the funeral company and was able to visit with them and explain the situation. And so they did drastically reduce their fee. And so instead of it being, $1,000, $2,500 up in that range, they were willing to do this for $595. He was divorced, worked for a staffing company on and off, and didn't have any life insurance. One son is in the Utah prison system, and then another daughter was in the foster system. And I believe that she was adopted at that point, and so there's really no next of kin or any other resources to take care of the burial for this individual. His name was Richard Cavalli. So, do you know on that? I think we have, Tom, is it around 2,500 that we have budgeted each year? It seems like it was, and I think in the 4 years I've been here, I think we've only used that one other time. And, again, the funeral home was very willing to work with the county and take care of it, but so that's what I know.
Seems pretty reasonable.
I thought so, yeah. And Rebecca was great. She worked with them and explained the situation, and that she'd done a bunch of legwork. So I guess I would make the motion that we authorize the expenditure of $595 to Levitt's Mortuary in Ogden to take care of the indigent burial for Richard Cavalli.
Second, I have a motion by Commissioner Scott, second by me. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let me get back to here. Okay. Thomas Brocksmith. Not here. Okay. We can, I guess, bypass that if he wants to get on the agenda again. So, and we're skip over, we've already done Bill. Okay, now we're up here to Scott. Getting caught up here now.
All right, so the first item I have is Riverbend Estates Phase 2. This is a subdivision in the Riverside area of the county. So Phase 2 is, I believe, 14 lots total. Phase 1 was, I don't recall exactly, I think it was 16 lots. Anyway, it's been through the Planning Commission review and comes with a recommendation of approval. It's also been reviewed by the county engineer, the county surveyor. They've signed off on it. The county attorney has had a chance to review it as well. There was one concern with regard to the subdivision improvement agreement and the bonding requirements. They have submitted some changes with regard to that, but the county attorney hasn't had a chance. Those just came in, probably an hour ago. He hasn't had a chance to review those modifications. So I guess at this time, probably the best would be to request an approval subject to the county attorney's final review and approval of those bonding requirements. And once he has a chance to look at those, then it can be signed off on and recorded.
So something changed from the documents that were signed and dated on February 1st?
So,
Because it looked like they, put the bond in place with Nationwide.
yeah, so there's basically, what they submitted today was a rider to that bond that
Oh.
basically, the way the county code reads, it states that the bond would be enforced, or what we wanted them to include in the bond language. The bond is still effective from February 1st, but they had like a completion date sometime later this spring, like June 18th, for the improvements. And the way the county code's written and the way we prefer the language in the bond to read is that the bond would be enforced through the completion of the project and would continue to be enforced for the warranty period or 1 year from the project's completion date, which essentially is our warranty period. So we can release portions of the bond as the improvements are put in place, but we actually hold on to a certain percentage for 1 year following all the, final inspection and all the improvements. So if, improvements crumble or whatever, we can go back in with that additional percentage and make those repairs if the developer doesn't or isn't willing to do that.
So if they basically just start the other process and maybe they only do 6 homes and then they do the other 8 and keep extending, it would extend from the last section that they do past
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
That makes sense.
we wouldn't even do the inspection and give grant final approval. So for these improvements that are listed out in here, they actually need to put the entire road in for the fronts.
Everything for the whole phase.
The fronts, all lots in this phase. They couldn't do half of the road and then part of it later. It's, for this phase, all improvements need to be in place before a final inspection would be done.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I would make a motion that we approve the Riverbend Estates Phase 2 subdivision pending the review of the revised bond agreement by our county attorney.
I have a motion by Commissioner Scott. I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
all right, the next item I have is ordinance 468. It's a request to vacate one of the alleyways in the Riverside area. The original Riverside township plat has 18-foot alleyways that run between each of the blocks. The landowners in this area have requested that that alleyway be vacated and turned back to them. So essentially, the way the state code is written is that 18-foot alleyway would be split in half and 9 feet would revert to the adjacent property owners. This has been to the Planning Commission as well as to the County Commission at your last meeting, and has come with recommendation of approval and basically instructed me to bring back the ordinance for final approval at this meeting.
Okay.
I don't have any
Yeah, and
questions.
these are all family members. It's a grandfather, a son, and a granddaughter, so I'm sure that they're okay with it. I would make a motion that we approve the ordinance number 468, the alley vacate in Riverside.
Second. I have a motion by Commissioner Scott, second by me. All in favor?
Aye.
And my final item is ordinance number 472. And this is a zoning map amendment. So the request came from landowners just west of town here on 2600 West, between 200 North and 800 North. They own approximately, I believe it's 75 acres in that area. At least that's what they're requesting be rezoned. Actually, I believe it's more than 75 acres. I've got multiple descriptions here for the different parcels. Anyway, the total request went before the Planning Commission. A public hearing was held there. The request is to modify it from the agricultural 20-acre zone to the rural residential 5-acre zone. And the findings of the Planning Commission were that, and these are the findings required by the County Commission as well, determined that the proposed rezone and amendment to the zoning maps is in conformity with the general plan of Box Elder County, that the uses allowed by the proposed change are harmonious with the overall character of the existing development in the vicinity of the property, that it will not adversely affect the adjacent properties, and that the facilities and services intended to serve the property to be rezoned are adequate and will provide for the health, safety, and general welfare of the public and protect the environment. So the Planning Commission, following their review of the proposal and their public hearing, found those things to meet the necessary requirements, and forwarded a recommendation of approval.
Okay. Steve, did you have any time?
I've reviewed them all now,
You-
look okay.
Okay, so you have looked at it. Okay. That
Oh,
was my question, so.
Total acreage is 172.73.
Yeah.
Okay, well, unless you
And
have some
that,
questions.
I mean, that's pretty consistent with other rezones that have been done out in that area, so
Yeah,
if I remember right.
the property is all adjacent to Brigham City, and Brigham City's general plan and their future land use map is for 5-acre agricultural as well in that area, so it aligns pretty well with Brigham City, and it falls within their annexation plan. So really, any development in that area would be annexed into Brigham City, and would basically be theirs at that point.
Okay. I'd make a motion that we approve ordinance number 472, the rezone from A20 to RR5.
Second, I have a motion by Commissioner Scott, second by me. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Got the warrant register.
Pass those to you first. No PAs today? Oh. Have you heard how Jenica's husband's doing? Trying to figure out what's going on.
Just two signatures on this one.
That's not, that's TK, isn't it? I hope.
I can't tell.
Well, this one, that one looks like corny.
That looks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Okay. Dang it.
You got it.
Stan, you had to move that drawer and I just nailed it. Oh. Okay.
Seems like we were okay on that one, weren't we? Or were we?
Think so. Question
Don't want to get sideways.
Hold off and redo that one. Okay. So, okay. Let's hold off on this one.
Just in case.
Okay. There's those. Okay, we need
Is that
to,
everything?
yeah. we need
I'd
to
make a motion that we move into a closed session to discuss pending litigation and
Personnel.
Personnel. Second, I have a motion by Commissioner Scott, second by me. All in favor?
Aye.